Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Very welcome to this webinar for our campaign, Sowing Hope for the Sake of the Planet. Our topic today is going to be listening to the cry of the earth and the poor as we continue growing seeds of hope. My name is Sister Sheila Kinsey. I am the Executive Co-Secretary of the JPIC Commission of USG and UISG, but also the coordinator of this campaign. We have just a few minor adjustments here, so thank you. So for this afternoon's session, we have our listeners in English and French and Spanish, and we are welcoming you to this event for this afternoon. So Sowing Hope for the Planet really talks about everything being connected. It's a project in which every sister whose congregation is a member of UISG and their connections are provided with an opportunity to make a difference in our care of the planet. So these webinars have been helping you to find different ideas, be inspired by what others are doing in a way that you think, well, maybe I can do the same. So we're in this all together. Well, Pope Francis has underlined the fundamental connection for us that exists between the environmental crisis and the social crisis that we are currently experiencing, and asks us, each one of us, to make a personal and communal ecological conversion. Again, doing this together. And he often reminds us that, again, everything is interconnected. So you can see on this slide the idea that the environmental concerns and our concerns of reaching out to poor have to be interconnected, that we have to be putting those together, that we just can't concentrate one on the other. They need to be with both eyes. We need to see them together. So as we begin our session, I'd like to ask Father Felix, who is the Executive Co-Secretary of the JPIC Commission for USG and USIG, along with myself. He is a priest of the Congregation of the Precious Blood of Christ, and he's going to lead us in our opening prayer as we begin this afternoon to share the ways that we care for our common home. So, Father Felix, please.
Hi, everybody. Happy to have you in this webinar. Our prayer this afternoon is going to be Psalm number 8, the psalm that is a song for glory and gratitude for the Creator's creation, creating everything, and also man at the center of the creation. But most of the time, this fact of man being at the center of creation has been somehow abused to the detriment of our Mother Earth, of our planet. So we want to be conscious of that. And on verse 8 of this Psalm number 8, instead of reading dominion, we will read care. Now, before we begin, just a small introduction that Mother Earth, which sustains our lives, suffers because of the damage we inflict on her in our unrestrained abuse of the goods God has given her. We are not respecting the rights of the nature because we are guided primarily by our greed. Our world dies because of the tragic consequences of uncontrolled human activity, all aimed at satisfying greed. Because of the exploitation of nature, human beings, especially children and the poor, are more at risk and become victims of environmental degradation. So we begin our prayer in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. O Lord, our Lord, how majestic is your name in all the earth. You have set your glory above the heavens. Out of the mouth of babies and infants, you have established strength because of your foes, to steal the enemy and the avenger. When I look at your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars, which you have set in place, what is man that you are mindful of him, and the Son of Man that you care for him? Yet you have made him a little lower than the heavenly beings and crowned him with glory and honor. You have given him dominion over the works of your hands. You have put all things under his feet, all sheep and oxen, and also the beasts of the field, the birds of the heavens, and the fish of the sea, whatever passes along the path of the seas. Our Lord, how majestic is your name in all the earth. And together now, glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Have a happy webinar.
Thank you, Father Felix, for putting us in a receptive place as we journey in solidarity in our common home, sharing our experiences and affirming the efforts of each other. So the webinar, Growing Seeds of Hope, provides us with an opportunity to look at things together and to really attend to the ways in which we look at what we plant and how we nurture our seeds to bring hope. So any movement that we make is really bringing a seed of hope. And we do this because we need to deepen our personal and communal ecological conversions. So to do this, we have some examples from some of our sisters that sent in some of the programs that they've been doing in their various areas. So we have the Trinitarian religious, in contemplation of nature, in a peaceful place, in a beautiful place, certainly conducive to prayer. In the next slide, we have the Dominican sisters who have just finished a wonderful project of cleaning up an area with the neighborhood people. So it's a beautiful place and a clean place. And they've worked together and are proud of their efforts. And in the bottom picture is the Sisters of the Holy Cross in different stations, out of which they honor the environment, they reflect on the goods of their place, and they pray for all of those in need. So this is a contemplative and active way of bringing us together into this webinar for this afternoon. Many of you may recognize this slide. It's the website that we've put together since February, www.sowinghopefortheplanet.org. We want you to visit that for your resources, to share the resources that you have. It's so important because we're in this together and we want to create a louder voice. And we have, what I wanted to show you on this particular slide, there is this part here for the survey, and we're encouraging you to really fill out that survey. We only have 30 who have done so, and maybe this is Lent, and that might be an action that you could do for Lent, but we really need you to fill this out. It's in 5 languages, and your opinions, your evaluations are very important for us as we move ahead with this program Sowing Hope for the Planet. So thank you. Please do that. Please do that. This is what you can find on the website. We had hoped to show you the website, but the internet connection is not working this afternoon. But I'll talk to you what's there, and hopefully you will have a chance to go there. So in the homepage, there's highlights about the news events that have happened, things that we would like you to know about in a timely manner. And then we have a map. So one of the reasons why we ask you your place is that we want to be able to locate you on that map. And we really would like to see it blooming and flourishing, to see this is where all of our sisters have their activities. There's goals we talk about. Again, you can see this interconnected with the webinars. The idea that we are asking everyone to think about what it is that they can do, to also look at the ministries and their connections there beyond their religious communities, to talk about it, to see if they're witnessing by the lives that they're leading, that others are noticing the importance of the things that they do. The current events and past events. So for example, when you would look for the webinars, this one will be posted in the current event, but past events has all other 4 webinars in the languages that they were done on each of the pages that you will find allocated for specific languages. And the resources categories, ones that we've suggested, it mostly is according to place. We're in schools, or in parishes, or in your congregation, or social services. They are in those categories. They have a nice little slide to kind of entice you to go to that. And again, that is populated by the languages that give us those resources. So if you would look at the different pages, you would see who has contributed, and you may say, oh, we need to put a few more on these pages. And the last one is a contact. A link that we want to really accentuate is the contact person that we're asking for each of the congregations to have. And also, if there's any questions that you have, please do so. Also, just to say on the resource page, there is a place that you can also add a resource. And so we're encouraging you to do that. That would be great. So please go to the website. You'll find it very informative. One of the videos that we have done, is for Water Day, and it had nearly 17,000 hits. So we know people are using things that we have. So we're encouraging you to keep doing that. In the March issue, probably it's at your comment already, there is an article on this campaign in the UISG bulletin. So please go there. Sowing Hope for the Planet, everything is interconnected. So in a way, it's a kind of a summary of the things that we're hoping to do with you. One of the areas that is coming more and more to the fore, and you may have heard about it, is the Amazonian Synod that's going to be held here in October in Rome. And our JPIC Secretariat in Rome, both Felix and myself, are involved in the planning of this. And it's being orchestrated by RAPAM, and that's a network of Catholic churches in the Amazon area. There's like 9 countries really considered as having the Amazon as part of their territory. One of the special features, though, is the Synod is the Tent of the Martyrs, and it's going to be a special place for prayer and reflection and information about the situation in the Amazon area, which is in desperate need of help because of so much degradation. The indigenous people who suffer so much because of what's happening to their land, and the martyrs, who are those that have tried to defend the environment and have lost their lives in doing so. Although we will be having this tent here in Rome, but this may be something that others may want to do in their own countries, particularly if you want to honor some of the martyrs for the cause of the environment. So pictured here is Sister Dorothy Stang. She's one of the Sisters of Notre Dame de Namur, and she was murdered in the state of Pará in the Amazonian basin in Brazil. And her cause is up for canonization, both as a martyr and as a model of sanctity. So we pray that all continues to go well for that cause. It's wonderful to have her be such a person to represent us in that work. So the objectives then of this webinar are three. Hopefully you will feel this as we move through with our three presenters, is that we want engaging experiences which in their efforts, the sisters have integrated responses to the earth and the poor. So those two elements were connected together in the way that they served others. A deepening and developing connections among religious as you hear and share stories and be inspired by what's happening. We're encouraging that these are opportunities to deep and develop the connections that we want with one another. And in the whole process, we want to bring to light the common responses from Laudato Si, because it's this Laudato Si that is a foundational document for us to go forward in the sense of being those instruments of hope in our world today. So for this afternoon, we have these three speakers. Could be morning for you, so in Rome it's in the afternoon. Sister Adele Howard, who's a Mercy sister, is going to be talking about how the CAC community has integrated Laudato Si in their whole congregation. And Sister Anna Victoria is going to be talking about their community action, the Salesian community action in India, Ireland, and in the United States. So we're going to have a real feel of what it's like to see communities taking Laudato Si and putting it into action. And our third speaker, Marisa Portrays, will be speaking from the Global Catholic Climate Movement on all the updates that our collaborating partner has been doing. And so we have tried to really work together to provide opportunities and connections for the sisters. And then when we have finished that sharing, there'll be a time for you to ask questions and comments, kind of an open forum for anything that you would like to share. Okay. So I would like to now present to you Sister Adelaide is a Mercy sister from Australia. She has been involved in the development and organization of the Mercy International Association reflection process. And she's still wide awake, which is wonderful to see. She's particularly involved in helping them process and integrate in the Institute the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor. She has a deep interest in researching, writing, and communicating on a new theology of the natural world in light of Laudato Si, which is her current PhD work. So it's a labor of love, I am sure. So with this, I warmly welcome Sister to share with us the work that the Mercy Sisters have done. Please, Sister Adele.
Well, thank you, Sheila. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're very fine.
Yes, we can.
Very good.
Great. Okay. So tonight or today, in your time, I'd like to just trace through how we, as a Mercy Sisters group around the world, did try to take seriously the message of Laudato Si and are trying in new ways to do that. So it's like a little case study that I offer to you for your interest and perhaps for your own take-up, if you wish. Following the declaration of the Year of Mercy in 2016, and the release of the encyclical Laudato Si on care for our common home, the Mercy International reflection process was developed by the Mercy International Association. That's the Association of Sisters of Mercy congregations and institutes across the world. And Dublin is our home base for that. We came together to find a way, a process that we could invite people to take part in, to engage the community in this emerging ecological consciousness in the light of the gospel and our traditional charism. Inspired by the theme from the encyclical, The Cry of Earth and the Cry of the Poor, mercy groups across the world, sisters, associates, and lay colleagues reflected on their experiences of this theme through the use of a 4-stage process. I've just been told to try again later with my screen sharing, so someone there might be able to help me out with that. We'll come back to that. I'll try once more with the screen sharing.
You cannot share your screen?
Yes, but it has for the slides, but it's not allowing me to show the slides at the moment.
Okay.
We'll try again anyway.
If you share your screen, what you cannot
Yes.
share your slide. Did you open your presentation before? You just
Yes, I've done all the things I did before. Let's try.
Okay, it's working. Okay.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So we move on. The call of Pope Francis, of course, was to develop an integral ecology. And we know that he expressed this in such a way that we realised in Mercy that we needed to perhaps take a new approach to our traditional understanding of our mercy charism, of responding to the poor, the sick and uneducated. We realised that had to be expanded to recognise the validity of the cry and the poverty of the rest of the natural world. The social justice needs were linked to the ecological needs. Now, that's evident to us all at this time in our history, but going back 5, 10 years ago, it wasn't as clear to us. We acknowledge then that the creation is God's loving plan in which every creature has its own value and significance. And as Pope Francis said in Laudato Si, each creature has its own purpose. Everything is connected. I'll try once again with the sharing of the screen. No, it's stuck. It won't actually move. Ah, I found a way around it. Thank you for your patience. So, as Pope Francis has said, everything is connected. Concern for the environment thus needs to be joined to a sincere love for our fellow human beings and an unwavering commitment to resolving the problems of society. Because we're faced not with two separate crises, environmental and social, but with one complex crisis, which is social and environmental. This new call seemed to be at the heart of the invitation of Pope Francis to engage in ecological conversion, seeing and understanding more deeply that we cannot separate the cry of earth from the cry of the poor, because in such extreme and frequent events that we are having now, cyclones, typhoons, tsunamis, at a level of severity that has not been seen so consistently in recent history, we are being forced to understand anew this message of Pope Francis that everything is connected. The cry of earth, the cry of the poor are one cry, and we are in the middle of that, creating a new possibility rather than developing the period of what we're calling now the Anthropocene. We have to get away from the human-centered approach to everything and start thinking about the planet and everything that is in it. And so, mindful of this call, our Mercy leaders across the world supported the engagement of all sisters, associates and colleagues and friends in a 12-month action reflection process to see, judge, reflect and act on the call and themes of Laudato Si. But we created this approach in what is a very simple 4-step process, but in fact it has layers and layers of possibility lying behind each one of these stages. I'm presuming you can see this diagram with the 4 stages in it. As I said just before, by starting with people's story or experience of the cry of earth and the cry of the poor, we're going back to that Cardine methodology, which was enhanced at a later time in Leuven by Clodovis Boff, Leonardo's brother, in theology and praxis, so that we not only just see and judge, but we actually name the focus of what we're seeing and take it to the critical analysis of stage 2 of this process, the broader context. As Pope Francis says in Laudato Si, almost supporting this very approach, recognising the reasons why a given area is polluted requires a study of the workings of society, its economy, its behaviour patterns, and the ways it grasps reality. So it's essential to seek comprehensive solutions which consider the interactions within natural systems themselves and with social systems. Pope Francis. In stage 3, the questions arising from the group's issues and concerns, focused in stage 1, and then brought into closer focus and critical analysis in stage 2, were then brought into reflective dialogue with the biblical wisdom tradition and church teaching, particularly Laudato Si. Added to that were our own Mercy sisters' traditions and writings. And this allowed a dialectic or an interaction between the two, out of which new insights were born. And those new insights, or that vision, became the basis for new action. And that was stage 4 of the process. So the movement from one stage to the next, back and forth, was not only dynamic and cyclical, but integrated. And of course, this was all accompanied by prayer, ritual and celebration, integral to each of the group's gathering times and integral to the Mercy reflection process. Now, from this endeavour emerged an appreciation of the process as a tool for transformation, spiritually, theologically and ethically, in the light of the call to respond to the cry of earth and the cry of the poor. Pope Francis has also said that human ecology is inseparable from the notion of the common good, a central and unifying principle of social ethics. Thus, the Mercy International process has made and will continue to make a significant contribution to the life of the local church where Mercy people are, and hopefully to the broader community. That had been the hope of the leaders when they began the process. And so a sustainable development and sustainable living policy has been developed here in Australia, in our institute, and so on. The urgent challenge to protect our common home includes a concern to bring the whole human family together to seek a sustainable and integral development. We know things can change. The Creator doesn't abandon us. Humanity still has the ability to work together to build our common home. Now, many people gathered, something in the order of 5,000, including some schools became involved with their middle school or a certain class, health groups, and many parish groups and groups of sisters and associates and colleagues. The two big areas that emerged were under the headings of displacement of persons, with the interest areas or focus areas of refugees, asylum seekers, poverty and homelessness, human trafficking, violence and domestic violence, and a group concentrated on the displacement of persons in persons with dementia. That was a very big challenge to us. And then integrated with the response to these persons who were displaced were the actions in response to the cry of the earth or the degradation of earth. Water was a huge issue, particularly in a country like Australia, but across the world. Environmental devastation in various locations, the struggle for sustainable action, sustainability, the big issue of garbage and pollution, and of course, fracking as a serious issue in some parts of the world. The participants in sharing experiences from their congregations and institutes and local community and parish groups conveyed the urgency of finding new ways of being mercy in caring for our planet while continuing to minister among people crying out for relief and justice. So for those of you who might be interested in using this resource, it is available online with all the diagrams and the background explanations. And it's also on the JPRC UISG website, Sowing Hope for the Planet, as one of the resources, particularly the videos of ecological theologians and scripture scholars from around the world whom we videoed and put up online. The strength of the insights gathered from the dynamic interaction of each stage of this process can become a genuine basis for an effective response to God's call to transformative action and mission as religious in our world today. I think the engagement of the faith communities on this journey of ecological conversion became for them a valid response to the call of the gospel through Laudato Si. This call to develop an integral ecology reflects the action of the Spirit alive in our world today, leading us, all of us, to have events like this and to become more informed and to take more urgent action. It has enabled people of goodwill who engaged in this process to respond to this urgent cry of the earth and the poor. In July 2018, in an address by Pope Francis to participants in the conference marking the 3rd anniversary of Laudato Si, Pope Francis addressed us saying, not care for our common home, but saving our common home and the future of life on earth. The Pope Francis spoke about the urgency of addressing this and called us all to action. He thanked us for being there to hear with our hearts the increasingly desperate cries of the earth and its poor. We know the challenge of climate change. We know the rising temperatures, which you'll hear about a little more from Global Catholic Climate Movement. But Pope Francis said, "You have also gathered to testify to the urgent need to respond to the encyclical's call for change to ecological conversion." So in our spirituality as women religious, I think we are always on the journey to look to new challenges towards conversion of heart. And the ecological challenge is certainly a significant challenge in our communities today. Finding new ways to engage our communities in that challenge, that was what we were trying to do with this process. And I think it did take us a little further on the journey. So Mercy International Association offers this action reflection process and its resources to those of you who might find it helpful on your congregation's ongoing journey into ecological conversion. It's offered in response to the despair and suffering of displaced peoples and the increasing awareness of the degradation of our environment. We're still on this journey, but in our church community, we share these challenges, we support each other, and this is the call of our time. When we speak of the environment, said Pope Francis, what we really mean is a relationship existing between nature and society which lives in it. Nature cannot be regarded as something separate from ourselves or a mere setting in which we live. We are a part of nature, included in it, and thus in constant interaction with it. Finally, I would like to say that as Sisters of Mercy, we've tried to hear this cry of the earth and cry of the poor in a new way through this reflection process. We're continuing to respond by seeing mercy in a new way and daring mercy in a new way. The next stage of this process, which we're now beginning across the mercy world, has begun with a focus on inclusion, oneness with all creation, and a commitment to the lived expression of deepened compassion. This has been named as Mercy Global Presence amongst us, and this is our new endeavour and our new challenge. Thank you for your time, and thank you and congratulations to all that UISG is doing to support those of us out here in our efforts to bring about this true ecological conversion.
Thank you so much, Sister Adele. I mean, at 3 o'clock in the morning, you're really there with the energy to share with us. This is great. And you did it in such a beautiful way, giving the whole context out of which your Mercy community really seriously studied Laudato Si and put it into practice. I think it's a source of inspiration for many of the persons who are listening to us, and an encouragement that this can be done. And you are so generous in giving the resources that you have that are available on your website, as well as on the website for Sowing Hope for the Planet. So thank you again for sharing this wonderful work.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Now I would like to move on to Sister Anna Victoria Ulati. She's the daughter of the Mary Help of Christians. She's from Costa Rica, and she's a congregational member of the youth pastoral area. And we're really privileged to have her share the community work of the Salesian community with their Daughters of Mary Help of Christians, and how they move out into 3 areas. They have some wonderful examples of being in India, in Ireland, and in the United States. So, Sister Victoria, please take it away and share the work.
Sí, muy buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes.
So, good afternoon. I would like, first of all, to greet you all. I'm truly very happy to share with you who are in India, just a few sort of guidelines of what we are doing of Mary Helper of Christians, and what we are doing also inspired by the encyclical Laudato Si. And for this, we have also prepared a PowerPoint. I would like now to present these three experiences, among which we have chosen them because they come from different regions. I would like to start with the experience in Calcutta, in India. Here we have Sister Esther Rani. She is one of the sisters of the province Mary Help of Christians in Calcutta, with the members of the education community, Auxilium Convent School, Dum Dum, and she animates the cross-cutting environmental education within the school curricula. We invite Sister Esther to share some of the experiences that she has implemented under this program. The Wonders of Mother Earth is the name of the program. And she here presents the various groups of each class have decided to raise awareness on climate change. They hosted public debates on the subject with the participation of naturalists, environmentalists who have promoted interagency climate compacts. Well, the youngest, male and female, have spoken about love of nature, appreciation of its wonders in the light of the message of saints, such as Francis of Assisi, and educators as Tagore. Their philosophy and advices were developed for the educational community into awareness programs on damages caused by the Mother Earth due to pollution. Likewise, the students have read in and tried to find in the Bible and in the Bhagavad Gita pages that refer to man's relationship with the nature. They explored also, they analyzed the speeches of St. John Paul II and Pope Francis on the care of Mother Earth, and finally they offered the audience the message of some of these texts that they had learned by heart. The school, Holy Child Auxilium in Vasant Vihar, New Delhi, has promoted an event aimed at alerting on the harmful effects of environmental pollution. The inadequate use, or rather abuse, of both paper and power has been diminished. The students have become more aware of the impact of plastics on the planet. They engage in the cleaning units, both at school and in the neighboring villages. They take care also of disadvantaged children, and in so doing, they acquire a vision and an idea of existing inequalities in their country, and they train for solidarity. So from Asia, let's now travel to Europe. And I would like to share with you the experience in Dublin, Ireland. In Dublin, where the Daughters of Mary Help of Christians have their provincial headquarters in Ireland, they have a program on ecology and cosmology, which is led by Sister Teresa Devine. Let's listen to her report. We develop a school program with courses on the care of creation, in which we also include justice and peace, according to the encyclical Laudato Si. we host 2 public events with an excellent participation. Recently, we have invited the marine scientist, Dr. Paul Connolly, from the Marine Institute of Galway in the western part of our island. He spoke about a very interesting element, which has to do with our oceans, and which led us to reflect, deeply reflect. We are working to eliminate plastics in shopping and in our daily life, and we encourage those in contact with us to do the same. We are networking with other groups. We're very active in our country as the care of creation concerns. Friends of the Earth is one of the groups, but we also successfully work with other ecological groups, and we share similar goals, and we work very successfully. We work in networking with the association Eco Congregations, which is a proactive group present in all Christian churches with which we share the same objectives of justice, peace, and integrity of creation. From Europe, let's now travel to the American continent to learn about the process developed in California, United States. In the field of integrity of creation, we have several experiences shared by Sister Carmen Botella. She's the headmaster of the primary and secondary school Mary Help of Christians in Corralitos, California. With our students, we do organic gardening both inside and outside the campus. So these are some of the photos of our school in Corralitos. We also do, as I said, organic gardening. And so what we do is that we put a layer of mulch, of fertilizer to minimize erosion and to avoid water pollution and increase natural habitat. Several teachers and professors accompany Life Lab activities that they organize for all the grades so that students can engage in different activities. You see, we plant trees, we grow organic fruits and vegetables, we try to collect and use rainwater, we recycle, reuse materials rather than buying new ones. Students can take home the plants to share with their families and teach them the importance of reducing consumption of water, recycling, composting, cleaning the beach, and participating in restoring and recycling projects. As our institution is involved in the program Ocean Guardians, we have to organize, collect, and classify data for our project. Therefore, we count the number of native plants that we multiply, the number of gallons of rainwater that we can collect, the square meters we dig, the number of invasive species we remove from the habitat, and the number of hours the students spend in this Life Lab. It is with great joy that we understood that the students became more aware of the options and decisions that they take in order to personally be responsible of the care of our Mother Earth, our common home, the priceless gift that we have received. As you can notice, we start with raising awareness and then moving into action, underlining the importance of action, of concrete experiences together with families. All of this in order to promote a change, a radical change, and a new lifestyle. Thank you.
Sister Anna Victoria, you certainly engaged us in some wonderful experiences, taking us from India to Ireland to the United States in a way that we could really feel the work that you've been doing and sharing the Salesian spirit in such a variety of ways, including the animals as well as the plants, the care of the water. Everything is just very comprehensive. And you were able to share the deep spirit out of which your community really engages with the local community, with the students, and wherever you are. So thank you very much for sharing that, the wonderful diorama with us.
Gracias a ustedes por invitarnos.
Thanks to you for inviting me.
Thank you. Now we're going to go to the Global Catholic Climate Movement with Marisa Portrays, and she's going to give us an update on that movement. She is the organizing director, what a job that is, of GCCM. She works with volunteers, different chapters, different member organizations, and she really has been engaged in Catholic social justice for a number of years, and she brings that to every level where she works, holding parish meetings, wherever she can find a place to have the trainings that are so necessary to make Laudato Si a real live experience in our lives. She leads advocacy and lobby days and coordinates international mission programs. So as our collaborating partner, we welcome you, Marisa. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for having us here with you today. It's incredibly exciting to hear the work that is being done around the world. And we are very grateful for this partnership as well, and for the opportunity to present some of the work that Global Catholic Climate Movement is doing around the world on care for creation and peace and justice. So to share some updates of our current work, we just finished up our Laudato Si Animators program, our primary volunteer training program, which educates people through the See, Judge, Act model, looking at the science of climate change, the Church's response to climate change, and our personal call to respond to climate change. Participants also complete a final project focused on Earth Day during our Lenten program and Season of Creation during our July-August program. We currently have animators in nearly 90 countries, as shown on this map. This is the 4th time that we have offered the program, and it's truly amazing to see how it appeals to people around the world. And as always, men and women religious are well represented in the program. This year, we've had nearly 600 people regularly participating in the courses, which are offered in English, Spanish, and Portuguese, and include discussion groups with other animators in addition to the webinars. After completing the course and becoming certified, the animators are responsible for coming up with creative events throughout the world to engage their communities in care for creation. Pictured here is a group in the Philippines led by Sister Lillian Frondoza, who created a Laudato Si park in their town using entirely recycled materials. So these are eco bricks primarily plastic bottles that have been strengthened with additional materials that have been put inside, bound together with old plastic, and used to create, as you can see, seating, tables, and walls for their Laudato Si garden. This year, we are also looking to add more live animator trainings. The online trainings are important as a global community, but we hope also to find more ways to do this in person in the coming year. This year, we are also orienting much of our work to support the Synod of the Amazon coming up in October, and to encourage people to think about the ways in which all of us, no matter where we live, both impact and are impacted by the Amazon. To that end, our Lenten campaign, which we are in the middle of, has asked people to give up eating meat for the whole of Lent, not just on Fridays. We chose a focus on meat for two reasons. One is that meat is a significant driver of global warming in general. As you can see here, the equivalent carbon emissions from different foods that we might eat, and there really is no comparison. Pork and beef are far ahead. Reducing meat consumption in general is one of the best things an individual can do to lower their contribution to global warming. Cattle ranching is also the biggest driver of Amazonian deforestation, responsible for 80% of Amazonian deforestation each year. In fact, among the concerns in Brazil currently is that Bolsonaro has moved the Ministry of the Environment under the Ministry of Agriculture instead, further opening up the potential of deforestation for cattle ranching. And many of the martyrs, including Sister Dorothy Stang, were killed by cattle ranchers seeking to expand their ranching territory throughout the Amazonian region. Our Lenten campaign is almost over, and we are happy that we have had 1,100 people so far register for this campaign. We are going to continue to encourage this group to continue fasting from meat in the way that works best for them, whether that includes giving red meat up entirely, becoming vegetarian, or simply returning to our Catholic tradition and continuing the Friday fast throughout the year. Our campaign after Lent will be our Earth Day campaign. This year, Earth Day is on Easter Monday, which is a busy time for those of us in the Catholic Church. So we have asked our network to instead hold their event the week after Easter, April 27th and 28th, which is Mercy Sunday. This also parallels nicely with Pope Francis's call a few years back to add an 8th work of mercy, mercy to the earth. Global Catholic Climate Movement's Earth Day call this year has two parts. The first is to hold a tree planting event to create a physical symbol of our commitment to creation, a recognition of the value that trees have in removing carbon dioxide and contributing to biodiversity and soil health at a local level, and in solidarity with those who rely on forests for their livelihood, including those in the Amazonian region. We have resources at our Earth Day site on how to hold a tree planting ceremony, as well as prayer and liturgical resources. We've also found that many people enjoy tree planting or adding a Laudato Si tree or garden as a wonderful way to bring the community together and to engage different age groups. In fact, seen here is a picture of an early tree planting that happened just last week, led by Sister Christine Safi with the Missionary Sisters of Our Lady of Africa in the Democratic Republic of Congo, with the students at the nursery school that she runs. There's also a commitment tree here produced by our group in Honolulu, Hawaii, at an event they held to present to members of the local government. This tree is meant to represent what each person has committed to do and to share those commitments with others, leading to the second part of our Earth Day campaign, advocating for change in our community. At the Earth Day events, we are inviting anyone who is able to write to their local, state or provincial, or national governments, asking for a clear plan to be put in place to keep global warming well below 1.5 degrees Celsius, what was called for in the Paris Agreement. Right now, we are far off track, even if every country met the commitments they had provided under Paris, climate change would still increase past 3 degrees Celsius, resulting in catastrophic climate change. And what is even worse, even as that almost no country is currently on track to meet their commitments, moving us to the orange line seen on this chart, business as usual, which has us exceed 4 degrees Celsius and possibly climb to 5 degrees Celsius of global warming. And while I know people here are very concerned about care for creation and familiar with the threat of global warming, to put this in perspective and just to remember, the last time the Earth was 4 to 5 degrees warmer than it is today, the sea level rise was 80 meters higher than it is currently, or nearly 240 feet. And there were tropical trees and palm trees up near the Arctic Circle. So this is an extreme threat that we're under, and we are encouraging everyone to write to their governments, asking for a clear and ambitious plan to keep emissions compatible with warming well below 1.5 degrees Celsius, emphasizing that we all have our parts to play and that these plans can be different for different levels of government. As we saw after the United States announced it was withdrawing from the Paris Agreement, there is much that can be done below national governments too, at local and state and regional levels. We encourage you to participate in this campaign if you are in an area that can engage in advocacy, which we also recognize is a privilege that not everyone has, and raise our voice as Catholics. Lastly, we have been participating in the climate strikes. On the topic of raising our voice, we're very excited to see what has been happening here. For those who are not familiar, this is a movement that was launched by a Swedish student, Greta Thunberg, who is striking from school every Friday to call for strong climate action, and who spoke during COP24. Since then, these strikes have spread like wildfire, popping up around the world. March 15th was the first global strike, and there were 1.4 million people at climate strikes around the world. For the global Catholic climate movement, many members of our recently launched Laudato Si Generation youth and young adult arm were at climate strikes in their regions. May 24th is the next global climate strike, and this is also the 4th anniversary of the release of Laudato Si. There will never be a better time to mobilize Catholics and to raise the Catholic voice for climate change. So we will be organizing around the strikes in a strong way, and in particular, working with the Laudato Si generation. The Laudato Si generation includes students ages 15 up through university students to around 30 years, so our youth and young adult outreach. But while these were started by students, they've also grown to include people of all ages, with one of the signs that received the most attention at the Washington, D.C. climate strike being Grandmas for Greta, carried by a group that had attended. On May 24th, we want to have a large showing from the Catholic community, and so we hope that all of you will participate and attend climate strikes in your region, but also that anyone engaged with students will promote this as well, and most importantly, support students who want to participate. We've heard from some of our team members and our Laudato Si generation that students in Catholic schools are being discouraged from striking, punished for leaving school, or looked down upon for skipping school, rather than being recognized for standing up and taking action. So any way that you can help support students making this choice will be helpful as well. And this picture here is from one of the climate strikes in South Africa. At GCCM, we have also long been engaged in fossil fuel divestment. We were very pleased to recognize the Austrian bishops recently who fully divested from fossil fuels. Our next joint divestment announcement will be on September 10th in Cape Town, South Africa. If your order currently does not invest in fossil fuels but has not made an announcement or would be interested in looking at divestment, I encourage you to reach out, and we would be very glad to speak with you about this further. In the divestment movement, there are around 1,000 institutions total that have divested, and over 100 of those are Catholic institutions, 130. So we have a pretty good showing at around 13% of divesting institutions, and we hope to continue showing how Catholics are leaders in this area. Lastly, we are launching more local advocacy campaigns and creating resources to help people identify places where they can advocate and how to do so in their communities. And as part of that, we also want to highlight amazing stories and share what is already happening, and hopefully help connect people to groups doing good work to support the work already in place, or to learn more about what they can do in their own community. We know that many of you are engaged heavily in care for creation in your community, as we heard today in the many stories that were shared. And we've also seen where sisters have stepped up to really to combat climate injustice and environmental injustice around the world. And so if any of you have stories that you would like to share, or have heard of others that you might be speaking with, I hope you'll consider sharing some of those with us. For any orders who are already members of Global Catholic Climate Movement, we've sent out a call for stories to highlight what is happening around the world, and especially local stories. We know many of you are on the front lines, as we'd love to find ways to share those far and wide. If you would be interested in sharing further, you can reach out to me at Marisa Portrays at Marisa at CatholicClimateMovement.global. And our Spanish language coordinator is Fabian Campos at Fabian at CatholicClimateMovement.global. These can be shared on our website, can be shared through a member organization newsletter, and if you would be willing to perhaps mentor or speak with people who are trying to do more within their own communities, we would love to make that available as well. So if any of you are interested, please reach out. And thank you again for all of the amazing work that is done, and for letting us collaborate and be a part of this wonderful, wonderful new program. And just incredibly grateful for the work that is done. So thank you again.
Thank you, Marisa, for sharing so clearly all of the work that the Global Catholic Climate Movement is doing, your organizational efforts, how you're reaching out in the community, and touching the church in ways that are so important. It's on all levels. You're dealing with the youth, you're dealing with the hierarchy, you're dealing with sisters. So you're trying to bring all of them together in various ways. And that's why the partnership is really so important. So thank you for the specific ways with Lent and with the advocacy efforts, showing some of our sisters and the work that they're doing. So thank you very much for all the sharing that you continue to do with us and for the church. God bless you. So we've had an experience of sharing in a much global perspective with the congregation of the Mercy Sisters, and then we went to looking at different countries with the Salesian Sisters in terms of the Salesian community, the Don Bosco, to look at the ways that the Daughters of have done such important work in 3 countries. And then with the Global Catholic Climate as an organization, how they continue to reach out and do work for the church, in the name of the church, in various places. So now is the chance for you to ask questions or comments and news that you'd like to share. Please raise your hand or make a note so that you can be recognized. And I see someone up there already ready to go. This is good. And Florence is going to be the one that's the technician to carry this through. We just lost her. I think English. I mean, you can ask it from any language. It does not have, I just thought that person was English, but you can answer any question in French or in Spanish. And we changed the time for the French because we knew that in Canada, for example, this is a better time. Okay. You need to raise your hand or put something in the chat box there. Okay. But you don't see many beautiful faces. Okay. Well, one of the questions that was asked this morning, maybe you'd be thinking of this, is that often after our chapter statements, which are very beautiful, that we find difficulty implementing them. And so Sister Adele kind of explained a little bit more about that process that the Mercy Sisters are engaged in. So you want to just say a few more words about that, Sister Adele? I was just saying that this morning the question was raised, and
no,
Sister
I heard that.
responded it.
I will, Sheila. Thank you for that invitation. I suppose with the Mercy International Association not being a general at structure, it really is an association of the separate congregations and institutes around the world who are Mercy Sisters. And so to actually get to a point where the vision that we were articulating and the actions we were naming and taking after the process of the Mercy International reflection, that was 2016, the beginning of 2017, and then we worked on reports and so on. But by the time institutes and congregations started having chapters in 2017, 2018, we had our own just 18 months ago. What we started to find was that the language and concern about the challenges in Laudato Si, this whole wording of our chapter statements and vision statements started to take on very clearly the language and concerns that had come from the process. And while that was starting to happen in individual congregations around the world, what we found is that Mercy International Association itself has just come up with a beautiful restatement of vision for our reason for being, and it's just published it in all the languages that Mercy people, sisters, speak, including English, of course. And this beautiful statement clearly picks up the concern that's right throughout our association across the world now, and that is, following the legacy of Catherine McCauley and deeply rooted in the gospel, what we're aspiring to is to look at welcome inclusion in the face of displacement and active engagement in the protection of our common home, witnessing to the sacredness of all creation, and so on. So in answer to one of the sisters who asked this question this morning about basically how do we get the messages out in our communities and across our networks, it does happen and it can happen, as we know. And all I've had the opportunity today to offer you is one way, one example, and to say it can work and it does work. And it's not because we are a young congregation. Our women are, on the whole. We're all a bit older. We have some young members in certain parts of the world, many young members. But I'm just saying, by way of encouragement, this change can happen and is happening and will continue to happen, this consciousness. So thank you for that opportunity to give that response, Sheila.
Thank you, and it looks like you were ready for it this time. You had more material to share, so thanks for that. Okay, Sister Florence.
I have a question in. J'ai une question en français.
And I have a question, and I'm going to ask it in French. She says, Sister Sandra Sanchez, she doesn't have any camera, any webcam, any mic. So the question is the following. I'd like to know, well, this is a question she asks to Sister Anna Victoria about the protection of water. I'd like to know what actions have you taken within and without the congregation for this project called Ocean Guardians. This is a question asked to Sister Anna Victoria.
It's a school which is part of this campaign, and I said it's very important to work in a network because individually we have a limited impact, but we have other organizations which have already developed positive experiences, and they have basically sort of brought together different schools, for example. And I was saying one of the examples is to use rainwater. Now it's the third year in a row that they are ocean guardians. They collect water rain, and they want to testify that this is possible and that they are truly guardians of the waters of the ocean. And they use this rainwater to basically water plants, to water crops. And it's a very small experience because sometimes they even water their backyard, but they are using rainwater and they're not wasting drinkable water. So they use rainwater to water little plants, smaller or larger stretches. And this is one of our experiences in our school, Corralitos. Of course, it is not a worldwide experience, but it's a small example of a headmaster which shows that this is possible. Because as I was telling you earlier, it's important because the youngest children are become more aware of the importance of water and the value of water, and then also in their families they share this experience. So basically we can multiply this kind of initiative.
A wonderful experience from something we take for granted. Great question, thank you.
You see, this is for the time being the experience that we have. However, there are other activities ongoing, as I explained earlier, not only with water. That is, this allows us to think about how water is used in schools for the various activities. So try to be attentive in using water and always being very respectful towards nature. Thank you.
From Monica, do the Mercy Sister have an NGO office at the UN? And if so, how does this connect to the transformation process that was described today? And then I have two other questions after.
Thank you.
All right, Sister Adele, please.
We do have a
UN connection, and if so, how does what you're doing in terms of the Mercy transformation process connect with the UN person?
Thank you for that question. Very good one. We do have a UN NGO presence through ECOSOC status at the UN, and at our office there in the church centre across the road from the UN in New York, Sister Angela Reid and her team, and before her, Sister Anya O'Connor, they've been very involved in a lot of the issues that we have been working with and focusing on. But now, after the process is finished, in this next stage of the process, Mercy Global Presence, what we are focusing on around the world and what they're focusing on at the UN in their work is in those two areas of displacement of persons, degradation of earth. And the big issue in displacement of persons is around refugees, asylum seekers, those who are trafficked, human trafficking. They're two of the big issues. And then around degradation of earth, water is a huge issue. So what that means is we've actually put a new structure in with our UN desk or our UN presence, and there'll be a lot more communication to and from groups around the world as they're at the grassroots level making changes and feeding that back to our women at the UN, and in turn, where it is possible for them to, at the UN, to make submissions and put things forward at commissions and so on, they'll be able to use that information and then use that influence and then feed that back to us all at the grassroots by way of encouragement. So that's one answer there. But can I just say there have been some practical examples where that influence has actually worked already. But I won't go into that now. It would take a long time. But to say in Australia, we have an ongoing serious issue with lack of water and drought and bushfires and rivers running dry that's been the scenario for a while now, but it's become very serious. We had millions of fish floating on top of the ponds of water that were left in the Darling River that runs down the side of New South Wales, one of our states in Australia, just a few months ago. And so together with this, I worked with our Mercy women in the area where this river is, together with a group of musicians who came to work with us and some farmers. We put on a big Blessing of the Rivers event, and it worked. It brought attention of people all over Australia to the plight of the Darling River. And this is being done by many people, but this was one little effort coming out of our Mercy reflection process. And the event was very, very moving, very beautiful. And the local Aboriginal people, the Indigenous people of the Darling River, led the smoking ceremony at the start of the prayer ritual and welcomed us to country. And then we're going to Canberra the next day to our Parliament to make representation about this serious issue. So there are little examples that give me heart that this process can have real effect at the grassroots level, as well as feeding the grassroots information to the people at the United Nations.
Thank you very much for sharing that heartwarming story for us. I think we have some more questions that we need to look at. Sister Florence.
Yes, we have Felix who have a question. So Felix, now you can ask your question.
My question is about collaborative effort between congregations. So far, we have heard individual congregations having some very interesting initiatives. I was curious to know from Sister Adele, from a kind of her experience in Australia or other parts of the world, or by the part of the sisters of FMM, if there is any collaborative effort among them in this, whether it is about raising awareness or it is about individual or singular projects or programs. That's my question.
Shall I go first, Felix? In Australia, just to quickly say, there are two organisations that are very strong. There are many, but there are two that are strong. The Conference of Religious of Australia are very supportive of all that we've been talking about, and that's made up of all the religious orders in Australia. They work together very closely, the leaders of the religious orders in Australia, and they have a very strong national structure and focus, and they resource congregations. So that's a good model of what's working. And the other different example is Australian religions against climate who are addressing climate change. The religions, the various religions, the Catholic group is well represented by sisters from different religious orders and by Franciscan priests and Columban priests. So presentation sisters and so on. So there are a couple of examples of collaboration and support across religious orders.
Thank you for sharing that. And now we want to ask Sister Anna Victoria, her response for the FMAs.
Just wait. Yes.
Sí, con respecto a...
Yes, as regards what Father Felix has said, you can. Also, in our congregation, we have basically joined other initiatives to implement the Laudato Si. One of these proposals is the project ICANN, which has been promoted by the OIEC and which has been also accepted by us. And we have jointly implemented that. When I say jointly, all the members of the educational community, so educators, teachers, professors, but also all those who are involved in the various works, not only in formal or informal education. And so through this sign for change, we have adopted this method in order to implement the Laudato Si in our distinct realities. It's a very interesting methodology because it empowers the youngsters and it also provides concrete actions. So we were able to engage in this project together with other congregations. For example, in Italy as well, we had different congregations working together in the field of formal education. And also we, in the different regions of the world, we try to engage other congregations to join the project. Thank you.
On a le temps en français.
A last question in French, if possible. Again, asked by Sandra Sanchez. For the third speaker, I'm a lay member and I work in responsible investment. Could you please elaborate on the impact of divesting of congregations disinvesting from fossil fuels? Could you please tell something about the risks and profits? And alongside with the disinvesting, what other ways of responsible investment are encouraged or are supported?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. So regarding divestment, I think there were a couple parts to the question regarding the risks of divestment, as well as other ways to engage in responsible investment. Is that correct? Are you able to hear?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Sorry, we were looking for you on the screen, so we were lost. Okay, sorry, Marisa. You can start now to answer.
Regarding the impacts of divestment, for the risks that you might see financially, we've worked with a number of groups who are able to provide case studies now showing that there's not a financial risk to an institution to divest. In fact, renewable energy has been performing better than traditional fossil fuel investments have been. And many organizations are trying to make the argument that financially divestment is actually a good choice as well. We work closely with the Franciscan Sisters of Mary, who have provided a few different case studies on this, as well as a group, Arabella Advisors, that have done something similar, showing that actually, in general, for any one segment of investing, if you divest from that but keep a broad portfolio, there's not likely to be a hit. And then specifically on fossil fuel divestment, they're not performing at the market. But even more than that, I think from a Catholic perspective, the financial argument should be set aside while we consider what our moral obligations are. And that's something that we take quite seriously in a number of areas when we consider where can we put our finances and what are we supporting. And so when it comes to something like global climate change and fossil fuel companies that are not only continuing to burn fuels and contribute to global warming, continuing to explore beyond what we're able to use and fight against, use their profits as well to pay lobbyists to fight against any sort of meaningful legislation, and contributing to the destruction that we see from heat waves, from extreme events such as extreme storms, and sea level rise that's contributing to the destruction of entire countries, that there's a serious question about whether we can continue to do that. Now, we also recognize that there are other ways that people have engaged in this issue, and have taken on things such as impact investing, which we think that the reinvest part of divest reinvest is incredibly important. Finding ways that we can support renewable energy, finding things that are doing good work in order to invest in is valuable. And that there are many places that have engaged in corporate shareholder advocacy. From the work that we've done, we think that there's a strong moral case to be made for divesting entirely rather than putting our money into fossil fuel companies. We've also started to see the effects with groups such as Shell even saying recently that divestment is part of the reason that they are not sure about their funding to explore upcoming fossil fuel areas that they would like to explore in new reserves. So we think that there's a strong case to be made on the effectiveness and the moral cause for divestment. Now, while there are a lot of places that engage in shareholder advocacy, though, I'll also say our main goal in divestment is large institutions that are, let's be honest, not engaging in shareholder advocacy or divesting, that are simply investing endowments or endowments such as in universities. And if you are not doing neither, that's our primary goal of getting people to divest. And if people are engaging in shareholder advocacy, to consider whether there is, whether it would be best to, as some places have done, limit their holdings to what you need in order to conduct shareholder advocacy, recognizing that there is a place to be in the room to have those discussions, and divest from any holdings above that. And I believe there are some places that have made that decision, which I think straddles the line. So, yeah, so I again, to summarize, we think it's a responsible position. We think that we've seen some of the effects of divestment, and would like to recognize that there are many people operating in good faith and trying to figure out what's the best way to change the way energy companies are operating. And hopefully we can both agree that places that are doing nothing need to be doing something and can put a lot of our energy towards those institutions.
Thank you, Marisa, for handling a difficult question and one that we continue to develop. I think, I mean, there may be other questions, but I think we need to be faithful to the time. And if we can show some slides here. Do you have something, Florence, that you wanted to say?
It's just, en français, c'est juste une...
Sandra said that the Franciscan Oblates of St. Joseph are part of a group of religious communities, RFSE, promoting Mother Earth with responsible investment strategies in order to promote social responsibility, corporate social responsibility, CSR. Well, this is just a remark I wanted to add. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for including that. It's very important, and I think this is the second time the question of investment came up, and so maybe we may need to look at having a session or something for more discussion, because it's so important. My community, also the Franciscan Sisters in the United States, also divested, and we know that the importance and significance of that, making that decision. We did it as a community, in fact. So this was a very rich sharing. I'm glad that you had an opportunity to ask and to comment on things that were just really important for us. Just to remind you, just a few closing remarks. Use the website, particularly we want you to do that survey. If you haven't done that, we know many of you haven't. We really need you to give us a sense of where you think we should be going, because your input is really important. And we continue to share some of the things that people are doing. The one sisters group that had made cloth bags in place of plastic bags to give to some of the people that they do business with. We'd like to share other people's work that they've done, you know, in reaching out to the poor. So on our website, you will find many examples of that taking place. And we really are looking for that one contact person from each congregation, so that the information that's coming out of the campaign really is given out to all the members. And we ask for one slide showing what you're doing. We are putting together a slide presentation for the plenary to give us a sense of the global impact of what sisters are doing around the world. Simply the name of your name, the name of the congregation, the place, and the event. That's what's important, and that's what we're asking for at this time. Feedback again, reminding you about the survey. It's going to be completed by the 23rd of April in order to be able to have materials ready for the plenary. Earth Day, 22nd, the ordinary day. Some of you are observing that, but just let us know what you're doing, and we put together materials on the website and also in the newsletter that we will be publishing regularly to alert you to the materials that we have, any news events or any comments that you would like to have us be sharing with other persons. The statement will be coming out when your leaders meet in May. There will be a statement, there will be a review of this whole process of what we've been doing and setting a direction for this campaign going forward. So we'll be needing to report back to you, again, what was the experience of the plenary around the campaign. So any questions, comments that you would like to make, please go to info@sowinghopefortheplanet.org, and we will respond to them as soon as we're able to do that. And thank you very much for a very, very fruitful session. Our presenters, our translators, our communication facilitators, thank you very much. God bless.
Thank you.